Today's episode is sponsored by Midwest Fire. For more than 20 years, Midwest Fire has been manufacturing high-quality tankers, tanker pumpers, and fire rescue vehicles in the United States and Canada. Keeping firefighters safe while enhancing their capabilities is what they do best. To learn more, go to MidwestFire.com.
Hi, this is Captain Joe Pernesti from the Elyria, Ohio Fire Department, and you're listening to Dr. Richard B. Gassaway on SA Matters Radio. His mission is simple. He wants us to see the bad things coming in time to avoid bad outcomes.
Hello and welcome to episode 35 of the Situational Awareness Matters radio show. I'm your host, Rich Gassaway. The purpose of this show is to improve situational awareness and decision-making for individuals and teams who work in high-risk, high-consequence environments. The SA Matters mission is simple, to help you see the bad things coming in time to avoid bad outcomes. I'm coming to you today from Raleigh, North Carolina, where I presented a situational awareness program for the battalion chiefs of the Raleigh Fire Department. They were a great group to work with, and thank you to Chief McGrath and Assistant Chiefs Poole and Hokut and Spain and Harvey and Division Chief Keith Tesnier for your wonderful hospitality, which included an amazing barbecue dinner. Thank you for that. I'd also like to thank the 15 battalion chiefs who participated in the one-day seminar. You were very engaged and interactive and asked some great questions. I really enjoyed our time together. The progress on the new website's moving along. I'm meeting with a web developer next week, and I had been working on it by myself, and I realized that the complexity of a website development is just beyond my abilities. So now I'm calling in the experts, my friend Adam Wojciechowski of Wojo Designs. Adam helped me with the launch of my existing website, and he's also a first responder, so he understands our world, and that helps. So thanks for your patience. We're moving along. If you're interested in joining the SA Matters community, you can go to the samatters.com website and click on the red box on the right side of the homepage that says SA Matters Membership. I've added an enticement to get members to join our community. Anyone who signs up will get a special report I've created called 25 Best Practices for Improving First Responder Safety. Thank you to the more than 5,000 members who have gotten connected and receive the monthly newsletter that comes along with the membership. If you're not a member yet, head over to the website and sign up today. It's completely free, and like I said, you'll receive that monthly newsletter that addresses situational awareness matters issues. Okay, for anyone who is a member, listen up. Be watching your inbox. And celebrating the 3-year anniversary of SA Matters, I'm going to be sending out some free video mini courses that will focus on how the brain learns and how we're training first responders to fail. I'll also share some best practices for how to fix the problems. You may want to make sure that support at richgassaway.com is on your safe senders list, or safe email receivers list, I should say. Otherwise, the emails with a video link might end up in your junk email folder. Based on the live programs I've done on this topic, I think these videos are going to be something that you're going to want to watch and share with others. So be watching your inbox, and they'll be coming out soon. I'm still working on them. I'd like to take a moment to share a couple of pieces of feedback that I've received from the SA Matters community. This first piece of feedback comes from an attendee of the week-long Company Officer Development Institute program that I did in Indiana. The purpose of that program is to help company officers be prepared to be successful in their positions. It says, Rich, when I looked online to sign up for the class and saw that you were listed as the instructor, I knew that added a lot of value. I got to listen to you speak in Black Township, and your passion and past experience were evident. I feel like I spent a lot of time away from my family this week, especially between class and conducting early morning and evening personal training sessions and working shifts. I did not get to spend much time with my wife and daughter this week. It is nothing compared to the time that you were away from your families that you guys spent, and I had a co-instructor, Patrick Harper, for this class, so he's referring to both of us. I want to thank you for your dedication and sacrifices for training firefighters all over the world. It is obvious that you both are very passionate. Thank you for sharing your passion and knowledge. I did not always have a lot to share during the class this week, but my gears were certainly turning. You both gave me new perspective on the same old problems that I face on a routine basis. The principles and skill applications will not only help me through my career, but with my home life and being a better husband, father, son, brother, friend, etc. At this point in my career, I'm not 100% sure I'm going to remain in the fire service, but I now know some of the things that I can do to help make my time a more positive experience and evoke change to help set other departments in the right direction for the future. Regardless of where I end up in my working life, I consider myself to be a lifelong learner. The book list that you provided to us is will be a valuable resource for many years. Thank you again for all that you do and for your sacrifice. And I'm going to withhold his name because he has made the statement that he might not stay in the fire service, and I don't want to cause him any issues on his job. But thanks to him for that feedback. The next piece of feedback comes from the SA Matters radio show on iTunes. I got 3 pieces of feedback that I'm going to share with that one. The first one says, Dr. Gasaway is one of the most influential fire chiefs of our time. These podcasts are full of relevant information we as chief officers and firefighters can use on the fire ground today. I listen to these podcasts and then turn the information learned over to my colleagues to challenge their way of thinking. Good on you for doing that. That's exactly what I would hope you would do. Thank you, Chief. Your contributions is priceless. Ron Tratchett, Deputy Fire Chief of Oakfield Township Fire Department in Rockford, Michigan. Next piece of feedback, OMG, a must-listen-to podcast. The visionary approach to the way of training and incident operations should take place has filled my brain up. We'll be listening to this one again. And this next one says, from the jump seat to fire chief, you can learn from this man and his passion. People, all caps, people. Says, thanks, Chief, for reigniting the fire in me. A DOD fire captain and ARFF for life. So thanks to all of you for your feedback and your continued support of my mission. I share this feedback. One, to say thank you to those who take the time to reach out to me, and 2, to let you know how much it inspires me to get that feedback, because it really does make me feel good when someone takes the time to extend their appreciation to me. So thank you for that. I'd like to take just a moment to thank some of the recent hosts of the SA Matters live tour events. These events could not be possible without the commitment and the support of our program hosts. Recently completed events include the Evansville Fire Department and Chief Mike Conley, and the Indiana Fire Training Director, Chief John Buckman. Thank you for allowing us to do that week-long program at Evansville. The Scott Township Fire Department and Chief Keith Carr for hosting a situational awareness 2-day event there, and the Raleigh Fire Department and the host, Chief McGrath, for allowing me to spend some time with your battalion chiefs. Upcoming programs of the Carborough Fire Department, and thanks to host Chris Covington for arranging that, the Matthews Fire Department, and our host chief there, Chief Green, and to the Cook County Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Management, and my host there, Robert Dunn. And then I'll be doing my last program of the year between Christmas and New Year's for the Brighton Township Fire Department, and my host there, Gary Gordon. So thanks to all the hosts. If you want to get connected with me on social media, you can get connected with me on Twitter at Rich Gasaway or at SA Matters. There's about 13,000 of us connected there. If you want to get connected with me on Facebook, you can go to Rich Gasaway as my personal Facebook, or at SA Matters is the Facebook page for Situational Awareness Matters. And there's about 6,000 connected with me there. If you want to get connected with me on LinkedIn, I'm at Rich Gasaway on LinkedIn, and there's about another 3,500 connected with me there. So there's plenty of opportunity to engage in some dialogue on social media, and I'm very active on all of those channels. So come on over and get connected, say hello, and start a dialogue on firefighter safety or situational awareness or decision-making related topics. Okay, let's jump into our feature segment now with Winnipeg firefighter Lionel Crowther sharing his near-miss and double line of duty death experience. February 4th, 2007 is the day that changed the lives of Lionel and Joanna Crowther forever. A firefighter with the Winnipeg, Manitoba Fire Department, Lionel was off duty when he got called in for an overtime shift. Early into the shift, his company, Engine 101, was dispatched to a reported residential dwelling fire. Within minutes of responding to the call, a flashover occurred. The flames engulfed the entire house, trapping several firefighters on the second floor. Lionel managed to escape by jumping out the second-story window. When the smoke cleared and the flames were extinguished, 2 fire captains had been killed and 4 firefighters, including Lionel, were severely burned.
On February 4th, 2007, I was called in on an overtime shift, which was a night shift here in Winnipeg. We work 10s and 14s, 2 days, 2 nights. And this was the shift that was working was 3 shift. It was their last night. So I was called in on an overtime 14-hour shift. And I was called into number 1 station, my home station. So I was called in and got into the station, reported to the captain, and was put onto the captain's truck, Engine 101, with Captain Harold Lassard. Normally on the overtime, most overtime guys get put on the squads, which run all over downtown and do our man downs and responder calls. But fortunate enough, I was put on the hydrant on Engine 101. That night, the cap had a meeting or a roll call at 6 o'clock, at night, and was getting everyone prepared for the night and your position on your trucks. And because it was so cold that night, it was minus 48 with our wind chill Celsius, which is cold in any Fahrenheit or Celsius. And so he was getting everyone prepared to make sure everyone had extra gloves, extra sweaters, extra sweatshirts for underneath their gear. And then we proceeded on into the back to the big kitchen. And we have about 20 firefighters on duty at one station at one time. So we had lots of people in the station. And we're working on dinner, watching the Super Bowl that night. And as we're getting prepared, I went to the back. And I always try to give my wife and my kids a call to say goodnight. And so 2 minutes later, that's when the first call came in for our truck. And it was over to Gabriel in St. Boniface, another section of our city. And this was a second in for our truck, for our Engine 101. So the driver, Scott Atchison, he was going to the map, but I'd spent 5 years in that district. So I said to Scotty, don't worry about Scott, I'll guide you in as we go. So we got away pretty quick. We have a par of 4, so 4 members on this truck, so we're going away. And like I mentioned, it's minus 48, Super Bowl, Sunday night, so not much traffic at this time of night. It was 7:30 in the evening when the call actually came in. And we're going across, and we had to cross one of the bridges, the river, to get over to St. Boniface. And we heard the district chief put in that it was a working fire. And he could see, and he wasn't on scene yet, but he could see the glow and the smoke rise from the area where the house was. So when we got on scene, we were actually third apparatus on scene. Engine 3, which first in, and then Engine 2, and then us at the very end of the cul-de-sac. It was a very small cul-de-sac with approximately 10 homes around that area. With no access to back lanes or anything in this area. There's a CPR main rail line to the north side, facing as we face the house.
Lionel, is the staffing for Engine 3 and Engine 2 also 4?
Yes, Engine 3 and Engine 4. All our engines and rescues in Winnipeg have a par of 4.
Okay.
And our ladders are par of 2, and squads par of 2. and our district chiefs have aides as drivers, so there's a par 2 on their units as well.
Okay, good.
So we were gone in. We were actually third in, so it took about 4.5 minutes to have 16 members on scene on this working fire. And as we got up, we walked up. Our crew was split into 2x2 for par. Our captain and our senior person, Ed, on the other side, on the nozzle, they went ahead while I waited for Scott, our driver, to get dressed. So we were going in and we were doing the search.
Oh, hold on. Before you go in, what were you seeing from the outside? Describe this structure to me.
Mm-hmm, sure. And as we came up on scene, it was a story and a half home with an attached garage to the front. Facing the front was the garage. And as we came up, we can see that the garage was fully involved, with smoke and flames shooting out all the windows of the structure, just the garage. And there was 2 cars inside the garage that were fully involved. So as I was waiting for Scott, and I got his tool, and our other 2 members went ahead to get tasked, and we were tasked to do a search. So our crew members ahead of us went ahead and followed in engine 2 that had a par of 3. They were actually taking in a hose line and looking for fire extension into the structure. Engine 3 that was first on scene was on fire attack and working with a par of 2, working on the garage door, trying to get the garage door down to work on the fire. Engine 3's driver and hydrant were working on their water supply, trying to secure the hydrant, which was in the center of the cul-de-sac. So as we're going up on scene, Scott and I actually stopped, and we actually did a buddy check. And it's something that we normally, and unfortunately, didn't do every time. But we actually did do this. We actually pulled down our car from our helmets that were rolled up. We made sure our extra piece of material that went around our necks, all our hoods were on, all those things, and actually probably saved Scott and I. And as we're going past the front window, or the window on the garage that was venting out, the district chief was over on that side, and he tasked us to do a search to the second floor, following our crew, our captain and our nozzleman. They had actually gone to the left up to the second floor to do the search, and we were tasked to go to the second floor, to go to the right. As we entered into the house, there's very light smoke inside, very, very light. You can see right across the rooms with no problem, and the lights were still on, so we can still see everything inside the home. The TV was on in the living room, and as we went over to the stairwell, which was in a nice large foyer, and it was a very nice home. It was a municipal court judge's house, so a nice large home, about at least 3,000 square feet, the main level. And as we were going in, we went to the left, up the stairs, 3-step, and started going up the staircase. As we were walking up the staircase, we were humping hose, trying to help engine 2 that was doing fire extension, helping them make access to the second floor. As we were going up the staircase, Scott and I both noted that our left side was quite warm, and that was the side that was attached to the garage. That was the wall that was separating the garage to the house. Mm-hmm. We actually passed our senior man, Ed, on the staircase. He was just helping hump hose up the stairs, and he stayed about the center of the staircase as we passed him. Our captain had proceeded on to the left and doing a search on his own without Ed. Ed hadn't made his way to the second floor yet. As we got to the top of the stairs, Scott and I made our right turn across the banister on the top of it, and we noted that there was like a glass or a plexiglass sheeting over top, protecting the railings or the banister. And we felt the smooth surface as we went along. We went to our knees to do our normal search pattern, not because of the heat or because of smoke, because that's just normally how we went. We went on our knees and we didn't walk through. And again, we did see all the lights on the second floor. There was no heat, and there was light smoke that we could still see right across the room. As we went down the hallway, our first room we came into on the right search, was the daughter's bedroom. we separated ourselves, and Scott proceeded into the room to do the physical search while I stayed at the doorway with a thermal imager, scanning the room looking for heat. And I could see very clearly, Scott, and I can see there is no temperature and there's no heat showing in this room at all. Scott was going on his right, calling out dresser, calling out down. He'd found a dormer with a step with a little seat in it. That was the one window in the bedroom. Proceeded on around the room. And at the same time, engine 2 was on the other side of the house, on the far left side of the house, proceeding on looking for extension from the garage and finding no heat, no flame, and they had proceeded through the master bedroom, ensuite bathroom, and into the far side of the bedroom where they broke out a window. At this point, the captain or his branchman knocked out a window and then called to the district chief outside for ventilation. At this time, the district chief was outside trying to do his 360, but on the outside of the home, there's both 4 feet of snow plus the minus 48 with wind chill. He was unable to do a full 360. He can only see the Alpha, Bravo, and Delta side. He then tasked the lieutenant from the ladder that was on scene from ladder 2 to go to the Charlie side to check the conditions on the Charlie side of the structure. At the same time, the captain from engine 2, Captain Nichols, sent his driver, because they went up with a par 3 on the hose line. He sent the driver down to go to the pike pole so they could do some extension or look for extension by pulling down the ceiling. So Brad Wozlenchuk was sent down the stairs and went out of the structure. While we were doing our search primary over in the other side of the house, the right side, Scott is over on the far side, and I'm watching him with the thermal imager, and he had made his way over to the far side of the room, and he had stopped on his knees, and he actually pulled the glove off to check for the thermolarine with a bare hand, finding no heat, and putting his glove back on. On the outside of the structure, our district chief had started seeing some changes in the flow and changes in the smoke as it was coming in and out of the structure. At the same time, engine 3 was now had brought down the large double door on the outside of the garage, the main door, and was starting to hit it with an 1 3/4 line. District Chief Bruce Duncan then called to engine 2, negative on the ventilation. He had noticed that the smoke was now pulling back on itself and was becoming more turbulent. He then went on air and called to us to evacuate the structure, for everyone to evacuate. Inside our room on the right side, Scott and I, as we were doing our primary, Scott's radio, he was having trouble with earlier in our shift, and he had it off, so I was the only one with my radio on. So I called to Scott to tell him that we were called out, not knowing the conditions or why we were being called out, just that there was an evacuation call. As Scott turned to me, he was approximately 8 to 10 feet away from me from the far side of the bedroom, and as he was crawling towards me, it was like a window shade was dropped down on us. A black, hot, turbulent smoke now was covering us. We had zero visibility. I had a helmet light on and a chest light, and Scott still ran into me, and he had the same on his gear as well, and we still ran into each other. We decided that we'd take the exit that we came in on for the staircase, and we're going to do a 180 and go back onto our left side and follow back the wall back to the top of the staircase. As we were doing this, we can hear a lot of commotion on the other side of the house, but we couldn't see because of the blackout conditions. We could start feeling the heat through our gear and the tingling in our fingers. That's how hot it was getting. As we made our way, Scott was now behind me. I'm in the lead, and I'm on my left side following along the wall, feeling that smooth transition of that plastic that was covering the dowels on the railing, knowing that we were getting close to the top of the staircase. Scott was now on my right leg behind, straddling, covering the hallway as we made our way back to the top of the stairs. I could feel the 4x4 post to the top of the staircase, and I felt the step to go down, and I called to Scott that we had the stairs. As I mentioned earlier, we can hear a lot of commotion on the other side, a lot of firefighters moving, a lot of movement and yelling because they had a lot more crews on that side. Darcy Funk, that was on engine 2 on the branch, on the nozzle with the captain, had dropped the line, and when he had heard the evacuation call, jumped down the stairs through the black smoke. Darcy made his way down the stairs and made his way outside the structure. So he was the second member out. Brad Linchuk was on the outside of the house, and he was the member that left Engine 2's crew to go get a pike pole. As he was going to get a pike pole, he saw the conditions drastically changing on the outside of the structure and was running back into the house to try to warn us of how it was looking. And he noted to us that he was screaming up the stairs to try to get us out. And as I made it to the top of the stairs, it was like everything lit up in the room. It was all orange, and I actually thought that the wall that we had felt earlier that was hot had breached, because the whole wall looked like it opened up and flame came up at us and lit up the room. The one thing that Scott and I felt that probably saved us even more was that we had that plastic or glass across the top railing, but we definitely felt the extreme heat from the blast coming up at us. Scott and I both said we got to get back to that bedroom because we knew we had a staircase, or we knew we had a window. So we started to make our way.
So you couldn't get down the stairs?
No, we felt that because of the flame coming up, everything lit up, that we had lost our staircase, and with the extreme heat coming up, it was like a chimney coming up.
Did you guys have a hose line with you?
We were on the rescue, so we took the we don't have a hose line on there, and we're just doing a right-hand, left-hand search.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we're off a hose line.
Okay.
And the only hose line that was upstairs was from engine 2 doing the looking for extension.
Okay.
So as it came up, and so Scott and I both said we got to get back to that window. We knew we had a bedroom just feet away from us that we didn't have this extreme heat. We didn't have all the fire that was now coming up at us, and we knew we had a window. We knew we had a way out. So Scott and I both turned, and Scott was now in the lead, and Scott remembers letting go of my coat and beelining it for that bedroom. And then he remembers he wasn't touching anything. Like he knew, basically, he had oriented himself to the room, and he knew where he had to head. As I turned, I felt I just got hit, and I ended up about 8 to 10 feet down the hallway, flat on my back. And I thought it was a closet that I ended up in, but it was actually a bathroom. We hadn't made it that far into the structure, so I didn't know that side of the house yet. And when it came to, I was really disoriented. I was lost. I didn't know where I was. The heat was incredible, how it drastically changes from those seconds earlier. Everything was starting to tingle. Your nail beds are starting to tingle. Your fingers,
Okay.
You can really feel it.
Hold on just a second. Your partner went into the bedroom on the right, but you inadvertently went into the bathroom on the left?
Yeah, I got knocked down, and I ended up going past the bedroom. Like it was about 8 feet. I ended up flat on my back and missing. Like I didn't get to the opportunity to crawl. Like I got knocked down and
because you kind of got like knocked past the doorway and then went into the next one.
Yes, yeah. I ended up going past the bedroom, not really knowing that I was in that direction. I actually thought I was on the other side of the house. That's how disoriented I was.
Okay.
I didn't know what direction I was or where I ended up.
What disoriented you? Was it heat, or was it just surprise? What caused you to get disoriented?
I think it was a combination of both three things: about being hit, like being blindsided, basically being hit by something, and actually I remember the feeling of having my feet in the air. That's how hard I got hit.
What hit you?
And, Captain Nichols. He was actually standing right in front of that window when that flash came up at us.
Okay.
And that flash went right through Captain Nichols.
So it knocked him into you.
We suppose. We have no...
Okay.
Yeah, that's the only thing that we can think of that knocked me that far, that he went running through the black smoke and all that flame and hit me, blindsided me, knocking me back.
Okay, go ahead.
So I found myself, like I said, I was disoriented. I didn't know where I was. I was on flat my back. Everything was quite painful now. So I went to my thermal imager, but I couldn't see anything in it, not realizing that all that black turbulent smoke was actually all the carbon was actually baking on top of our gear, blacking out our mask. I remember wiping a bit of my mask, and I could basically push the screen right against. I could see white. So everything was the same temperature. Nothing was showing. So I have it tethered to me, so I dropped it and went right back to my right-hand search. And back in the hallway. And at the same time, Scotty was moving as well. He's moving through the bedroom that we had just searched. And he could feel that rush, the heat on the back, and he actually felt like he was going to die I couldn't believe that he was going to die in a story-and-a-half home. His wife was about 2 months away from having their little boy, and all these things were flashing. His whole life, he said, was flashing in his eyes, that he couldn't believe that he was actually going to die in this house.
Did he just, when he talked about his life flashing before his eyes, did he talk about any specific visions that he had? This is a big deal, because this actually describes part of the neuro process that happens when we're trying to find solutions to critical problems. When we're under stress, you actually do have this kind of life flash before your eyes kind of things. How did he describe that?
His little girl was, I think she was about two or three, and that they already had, and so he envisioned not being able to walk her down the aisle. And then they were having a little boy, like she was 2 months away from having, that he would never see him play baseball. And these things are the things he saw. He saw these pictures in his mind. When he felt that heat searing at his back, all these things started to come at him. And that's when that belief of that he was going to die happened.
Okay. Go ahead and continue.
Yeah. So Scotty continued on into that room, going straight towards that dormer where the window was, and at the same time, I'm working my way out into the hallway. Down below, Brad was Lynchuk that had come in. He got knocked down by the flash as it flashed up over top of him, knocking him down the staircase. Lucky enough, he was able to get back up and made his way back down the 3 steps that he had gone up. He got disoriented and lost down into the main floor because everything had drastically changed now. The black smoke, the fire, everything had drastically changed just in seconds. On the outside of the house, no one knew that we were in so much trouble because nothing was on the radio. No maydays, no radio contact. We weren't trained for any of these things. We did lots of RIT training, but we had never trained in maydays, going on the air to let them know what was happening.
So the crew inside knew they were in a bad spot, but didn't call on the radio to advise command of that. Is that what you're saying?
No. Yes, no one did. No one went on the air because basically we were in survival mode at this point, and not being trained in it and understanding it now, it's a lot easier for me to look back and say, man, I should have just went on the radio. But if you're not training it doesn't magically just happen.
Right on. Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing that I think about now is the simple thing of going on the air, of just letting them know that we were in trouble right away. Not when I was at my last breath, but as soon as something happened, I wish I would have known to do that.
Okay. So
I was making my way into the hallway, and I came across a set of boots. And I actually thought it was Scotty. So I said, Scotty, we got to go. I was revved up. I was panicking. I can feel the tunnel vision had already started. All I could think about was getting a window. So I was shaking the boots, and the sound was Captain Lassard, my captain. I said, Cap, we got to go. I was panicking. I was trying to find my way out. So I got the Cap up, and we made our way. I made my way past the Cap, and I was in the lead. And we were making our way on the right in the hallway, and we came across a bedroom, which was opposite. It was on the opposite side of the house than the room that we initially searched, on the other side of the hallway now. So on my left side, if I would have went left, I would have went to the bedroom that Scott was in. But I was on my right side, and I went to the right, which was in the opposite bedroom, which was the son's bedroom. So I was scanning. I didn't do a full search, perimeter search. I went from dresser to bed, and boom, I hit the back wall of the house. Now I'm on the Charlie side. I scan up and down. I find a window approximately 4 feet up. And now I find the cap. My cap was on my left side, and the window. I stood up into this heat now. I was going to try to break it out. I had lost my axe when I got knocked down in the hallway, so I went at it with my fist. I heard on the other side of the room, other side of the house, I could hear Scott calling out that he found a window and was breaking glass. So I knew Scott was going, and I said, "Oh man, I got to hurry up. I got to get this window." So Scott was breaking his window, but he was starting to he felt the transition of that dormer, the step up, and he felt the step or the little bench that was inside there. But he was reaching out with his mitts on, his winter mitts, and he couldn't find the window. So he started to doubt himself. He started to feel disoriented. Did I make a wrong turn, he kept thinking. But then his gloves hit the louvered blinds, and he felt and he heard the sound of that louvered blinds make when you hit them with your gloves. So he knew he had the window, and he started to break it through. He broke through his window and dove head first. And that's how bad it was. He dove head first through the window, thinking he's going down 2 stories. But lucky enough, on the front side, on the A side of the house that he was on now, there was a front porch with a roof on the front. And Scott landed about 1.5 feet down into the snow. But because his mask was blacked out from all the carbon baking on top of our mask, he couldn't see where he was, and all the smoke was now billowing out. He started sliding down the roof, but lucky enough, he caught himself on the rain gutter before going over the edge. Another firefighter on the driveway saw Scotty come out onto the roof and able to get a roof ladder over to him and to help him down. As he walked over to the district chief that was on the driveway, Scotty asked the district chief, "Where's everybody?" He's thinking now, Scotty's starting to doubt himself. Was it really that bad? Why am I the only one out? Did I just jump off a structure that really wasn't that bad? And the district chief said, "No one's out. You're the only one." So then Scotty told him what happened and what we experienced on the second floor. And right then the district chief put in that we had firefighters missing. We had 4 crew members missing at this point. And he put Rich team, who was just walking up the driveway, he put them into duty right away to come and look for us on the second floor. At the same time, I'm on the far side of the structure, on the Charlie side in the back corner with my captain, trying to break out that window with my hands. I actually had a calming sensation at this point because I found the window. I had the window, so I felt we were going to be okay. And I started going at that window with my fist, and it felt like concrete. I couldn't believe how hard it was to break out a window just with my fist. So I kept punching, and at the same time, the captain and I were shouting back and forth, "Why is it getting so hot? Why is it not getting cooler? Why is this so bad?" Back and forth like that. So finally, in one hand, I broke one of the panes, not realizing the house had just undergone a major renovation with brand new triple pane windows with gas. Finally, when the panes break, and I go at it again, and it felt like concrete again, and I started actually thinking, am I at a window? Or is this just a framed window or a framed mirror or a picture frame? So I actually stopped, and I felt the casements around the window. I felt the crank on the other side of my left side. So I actually knew now that I had a window. So I go at it again, and I start breaking through. And I remember now hearing on the radio that the RIT team was coming. And I remember shouting in the Cap 2 that we're up here. And we can hear a lot of commotion on the outside, down in the hallway. And we can hear screaming. But we didn't realize it was our senior man from my engine, Ed Weeb, was now on the staircase screaming. Because as he was humping hose, that's when it flashed up at him. And when it darkened down on us, when it blacked out, Ed went to his pants to get a flashlight, but took his gloves off. And then it flashed up, and Eddie had bare hands.
So he was screaming from pain.
Yes. Yeah. Eddie was screaming, and intermittently he would scream and then would stop. He was going in and out of consciousness. And he was actually laying upside down on the stairwell, head about the midline and feet close to the top. When the RIT team was coming in, they could barely make access to the front door because of the flame and the heat that was coming out. And with their 1 3/4 line, weren't making access. So the lieutenant that night, Gordy Cannell, did an amazing job with his CAN report, with his conditions, actions, and needs. He called out that he was not able to make access, and another member from Engine 9, the third-in truck that came in with the RIT team, they came in behind them with a 2.5-inch line to help try to blaze a trail so they could make access to the second floor. So as they're making access, the lieutenant, Gordy Cannell, was doing an amazing job on the radio, letting everyone know what he was coming across. And that's one of the things I remember hearing on the radio. So I heard a lot of commotion, a lot of sounds and movement in the hallway. But it was getting so hot in our room, I continued on our window. And as the RIT team made access, they didn't realize that they came across Ed Weeb on the staircase. They thought they were coming to the second floor, and also we did too. We thought they were coming for us. So they started to work on Ed and tried to extricate him as quickly as possible. But I continued on our window, and finally my hands broke through, and I remember punching through. My right hand went through first, and my left, and I tried to clear the window. And by the time I pulled my hands and arms out, I couldn't feel my hands and arms at this point. All that heat had burnt most of my hands and arms already. And now,
let me ask you a question. And I know it's always easy, afterwards to think about things. But did it occur to you to try to crank the window open, or were you just in get the window broken, get out of here kind of mode?
Yeah, I've actually had that discussion a few times of time-wise, what's faster, and we simulated that actually by how quickly, if you ever envision how quickly you crank and how slowly the window opens, if you can envision that. Because it was a side crank, the window would open to the side.
Mm-hmm.
And the side I broke out was 18, the section was 18 by 24, the bottom section of that sectioned off window with PVC.
Mm-hmm.
Then the other side was a full window. But because of the crank and everything, it's actually a narrower window. And we've simulated a few times that it'd be a lot faster to actually break out the window with a tool. The tool makes a big difference.
Oh yeah. I think you'd have been much quicker if you had a tool, versus trying it with your fists.
Yeah. But the one thing that really changed our situation now that the window was open was Scott's window was open on the other side of the house, which was where the winds were coming from. The winds were coming from the northeast. And that's exactly how the house was situated, facing northeast. Now that wind, when I created that larger vent, I was now standing right in the vent path. I was right in the flow path. And it felt like that force came up us on again. It was like a whoosh sound, like a jet engine came at us, and Harold and I got hit again with that heat. And of course, I was standing right in the middle of the window. At this point, I started screaming in my cap that I had a window, and and we got to go. And the cap kept saying, "It's too high, it's too high." At this point, I was past panic. I was exhausted. And I was in a standing position. I went to grab the cap because he was on his knees, and I tried to pick him up, try to get him to the window, not realizing that all that heat and all that energy was stored in our gear was now being transferred to our skin. And we got burned. And I remember us screaming out. But that's not really what I was thinking about, the compacting of gear and all the energy in the gear and things. I was thinking I wasn't lifting them properly. That's what came to my mind. And in those seconds, I kept thinking, I got to lift them with my legs. That's what came to my mind, is I got to lift them with my legs. Like, I was 32 at the time, thinking, Harold was a little heavier than me, and older, but I should be able to pick him up. That's what was going through my mind. I should be able to pick him up, and I have to use my legs to do it. So I got down as low as I could with my legs, and then I tried to prop him up onto my shoulder and lift them that way. And again, the same thing happened. The compacting of gear, all the energy transferred to our skin. And we screamed out. But this time we both went down into a pile. Now I'm exhausted. I can barely move, and I try to get up. And I was able to get the cap up, and now his arms are on the windowsill. And the cap said, all he kept saying is, we got to go, we got to go. But on the outside, the lieutenant that was checking the Charlie side for the district chief was in the back there, heard the breaking glass. And he started shouting to a crew that had a ladder up on the Bravo side to bring that extension ladder over to try to help us out on the back side of the house. And one of the members was below the window, and I could hear them shouting up to us to jump, because the ladder wasn't there yet. They could hear the screams and the sounds, but they couldn't make out what they were saying because of how a scream sounds, or when you yell in your mask, how garbled it is. So by this point now, the RIT team is now making their exit with Ed Weeb, taking him out to the driveway. So now I'm out trying to get out that window, and one of the members on the backside said they couldn't see anything, but all they could see is a flash of a helmet once in a while, which was mine. I tried to fit my head through the area, and one of the things that came to mind was we had done something the summer before called Back to Basics at our academy, of low profiling and training with our masks on and our tanks to see what we can fit through and what we can't, and how to do low profiling. And it's like it came back to me, all those movements of putting my arm through, then pushing my mask through, and my helmet. If my helmet fit, I knew I should be able to fit through. And how I pushed my tank up to the void in the window, and it's like I just shot through the window. I ended up falling about 18 feet down and landing on my left side onto my ribs, and my arm was outstretched straight in front of me. Luckily, I missed the firefighters down below that were trying to put up that extension ladder. And Lee Gruner, she was just below, and she said I almost landed on her and scared her so bad she almost peed her pants. But they didn't see me because all the smoke was billowing out. It was a vent point now. So I got up, and I thought actually that they helped me up. I remember that them peeling off my gear, but they went to look for me. They heard the thud on the deck, but they found me over in the snow about 4 feet away. That I'd gotten up and jumped into the snow. All I remember is falling down, and it felt like a second. It didn't feel like 18 feet at all. I felt no pain anymore. All I did was take a breath, and I closed my eyes. Then I felt Scott and them pick me up and starting to take my gear off. They didn't know who I was because my gear was so blackened and destroyed that they didn't even know who I was with the name on my back or recognize me at all. So they started taking off my gear, and they realized it was me. Then they saw that Captain Lassard was hanging out the window, and another Scott Kissick, another fellow from overtime, was there. He was able to clamber up onto the sunroom roof on the Charlie side. There was a sunroom. He got up on that sunroom roof and was trying to pull Captain Lassard out. But unfortunately, Captain Lassard's SCBA was stuck in the window, and he wasn't able to pull him right out. He was about halfway out, but could not pull him out all the way. The ladder driver was now in the back, and he was able to get up the ladder that was now positioned in the back. And he grabbed it, and both him and Scott were pulling at Captain Lassard, trying to get him out, but they couldn't get him out. What they had to do was they had to push the cap back in, and Ray Thompson, the ladder driver, did a low profile, dove into the window to try to lift the captain out. And Ray was unable to lift the captain himself, and another member that had made his way from the inside of the house to the structure. They had knocked down some of the fire, and he was from engine 9 that with that 2.5 has made his way to the back part of the house on the second floor. Garth Roswell and Ray now tried to lift the captain out the window instead of taking him back through the house. They put him down the extension ladder. At the same time, I'm making my way over to the ambulance on the far side at the end of the cul-de-sac on the main street. And that's where I met up with my partner, Scott Atchison. And Scott ran up to me. Scott's about 6'7", big guy, and gave me a big hug, saying to me, I thought you're out. I thought you're out. We made our way over to the ambulance, and that's when one of the medical supervisors that were on scene took my gloves off, and that's when I realized I was hurt. I didn't feel anything at this point. I'm in shock, of course, and all my skin and all my hands were degloved. The skin was hanging basically at my wrists. All my fingers were blackened, and that's when I really felt I was in trouble. I went back into the ambulance. They put me inside, but they laid me down onto the bed with my gear on. The heat, of course, was blasting because it was so cold out, and I just started losing it. All that energy, all that heat that retained inside my gear, that was now transferring to my back, to my legs, to the rest of my body, and actually felt like I was back in the house. That's how much energy and heat was still inside that gear. It was actually feeling like I was back inside the house. So they opened up the doors, they opened up the side doors, the back doors, and they're trying to cool me down. And they couldn't get my gear open because of the damage and the burns to the front of my gear. They tried to grab scissors and cut up the legs and cut up the arms to get my gear off. At the same time, they were working on trying to get my captain out, and they're carrying him down the ladder at this point. And our platoon chief, Bob Wright, is now on scene. He's at the base of the ladder. And him and Harold have been on together for over 32 to 34 years. And they'd been together down at one station. And Bob had seen that it was Harold, and he kept saying, "We got you, Harold, we got you." And Harold kept saying, as he's coming down, "It's too high, it's too high." And when Harold got to the ground, that's when Harold stopped breathing. The crews quickly started CPR and started to work Harold as they carried him around to the front of the house, trying to get him to another ambulance. And at the same time, the district chief is now doing his part, trying to find who's missing still. And he found out that it was Captain Tom Nichols from Engine 2. The captain, who was standing over in the far room in the master bedroom right in front of the window when it vented, and went basically right through the captain. His burn pattern, the autopsy showed the burn pattern to his upper body had breached into his throat region, and that he would have survived his burn injuries to his body, but unfortunately he asphyxiated due to the burns in his throat. The one thing that we realized later that was the only way I could have been knocked down was when the cap got hit with that blast of fire. He must have made a run for it through the bedroom, into the hallway, and hitting me back into that bathroom on the opposite side of the house. He was found 4 feet away from Captain Lassard and I in the bedroom where we exited, where I broke out the window. He was on the other side of the bed. The secondary REIT team that found Captain Nichols said the only reason they found him was because they saw his boot underneath a mattress. It looked like he was trying to pull the mattress over top of himself. And they found the boot with the thermal imager. They then extricated him quickly with the 2 members on that team, extricated Captain Nichols down to the driveway where the remaining crews started CPR right away. Captain Lassard and I were then in separate ambulances and were taken to Health Science Center. And I was taken into recess where I was starting to get assessed, and I heard a lot of commotion and everything behind me and to someone on the opposite side of the trying to think what that could be, Rich. The other side of the
like the emergency room.
Yeah. On the other side, they just had the things closed there.
Mm-hmm.
Separating in the rooms. But it was actually Captain Lassard was taken to the next bed over, and I couldn't see anything, but I could hear them working on him. And that's when I could hear. I was still conscious when they pronounced Captain Lassard. At this point now, my wife is now being notified. And as we were en route in the ambulance, our medical supervisor had asked me if I wanted him to call my wife, and I actually said no. I didn't want him to call my wife. I wanted him to call my mother-in-law. so then she could come to my house to tell my wife the news. I didn't want a chief from 3 shift, who my wife didn't know at all, to come and tell her this news. I wanted it to come from someone she knew. So my mother-in-law was a nurse, so she was able to give her some of the information. And I asked the MAC supervisor if he would actually call my brother-in-law as well, so he could drive my wife to the hospital so she wouldn't be alone, because my mother-in-law would stay with my 2 little boys that were in bed. And when Joanna got on scene there, she said to the hospital, she said it was like a movie. Like she said, it was like one of those firefighter movies like Ladder 49 or Backdraft, where you see all the firemen and police are all in the lobby and waiting rooms, and people were panicking and nurses were crying, and she didn't realize what she was coming in on. So when she came into the recess where I was, she had a huge relief because she could see my face. That's the one thing, because I left my mask on. I didn't lose my mask. My face, I still looked the same. She had all these visions as she was driving to the emergency room of what was she going to see. In those few minutes there, we had our typical I love yous and glad you're okays. And Joanna said the first thing I said to her after that was that we had to have another baby. So I blamed it on the drugs, but Joanna kept me to it, and now we have a little 3-year-old little girl, Madison. But unfortunately, with Joanna didn't realize till after when she was asked to leave, to when they were going to now intubate me because of the dangers of losing my airway. She then realized outside by some of the other firefighters that there's another member, Eddie Weeb, was received very devastating burn injuries to his body, and we had lost both captains. They both had passed away. And all this had happened, all these things happened in approximately 9.5 minutes. And within under 20 minutes, they had overtime shifts, other overtime firefighters called in to replace the crews, to go back to bring our manpower back up.
How fast did conditions change inside the structure? Give us a timeline.
For us inside, when Scott was there right in the room, I was scanning, watching him, and he took his glove off and checked that thermolayering with a bare hand, to when it blackened down on us was probably 8 to 10 seconds. And then from the blackout conditions to when it flashed up at us, we were guessing probably 10 to 15 seconds from how long it takes you from crawl 15 feet on a floor. And all we were doing was turning around 180 and going about 15 feet on the floor on the left side. So we're guessing about 15 seconds at the most when it actually flashed up. One of the benefits I had was I got to talk to one of the investigators after, because it's been 7 years and we still haven't had access to the report. But when the investigators did tell us some of the insight of why it did flash up to us, was the garage door, big door, was brought down, and the man door at the very back of the garage, on the opposite side, that the son that was home had discovered the fire. The door wasn't latched. The son, about 2.5 hours earlier, was in the garage with a buddy smoking, and then they proceeded back down into the basement, and 2.5 hours later, they started to smell smoke. So this fire had been burning and building, and by the time the smoke finally traveled down to the basement, it was a fully involved garage fire. Now that the garage door that was just ajar, a steel door, once that garage door came down and they started hitting it from the outside, and then the vent point on the second floor was created, it went to the lower pressure. and they said they found the garage door, the man door at the back, blown down in half, bent in half, and burned swirl marks through the kitchen, to the hallway, to the main foyer, and up the stairs, flashing up to us on the second floor.
Was there anybody home at the time of the fire?
At the time of the fire, like
when you guys arrived?
Yeah, when we first came up, nobody came up to meet us outside. Nobody came up to say, hey, we're out. No one came up to say that, oh, the kids are gone. We found out later that the daughter had just left. The sister, I guess, had left with her boyfriend to go get a movie, and the son was the only one home with his buddy. And that there was approximately 9 calls to 911 about the fire. And the 9th call was actually the son, but he was 2 doors down at a neighbor's house, but never, ever came outside to come tell us that no one was in the house.
Wow.
And the timeline after, I was asked by the district chief later on, probably a few days later, he asked me, how long do you think you're in there? And I thought 35, 40 minutes. That's what it felt like. It felt like we were there forever. Like all those things that I described seemed to take forever, like all those different things. And I was only in there approximately 9.5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And approximately from first entry to going up the second floor, doing the search, to when it first flashed up at us was probably close to 4 minutes.
Wow.
And then all those other things to get out, another 4.5 minutes.
Funny. Well, it's not funny. It's interesting how time gets distorted.
Oh, it blew me away of even finding out that I was knocked to the other side of the house. I actually thought I was actually knocked to the far side because I was so disoriented. And I didn't know where I was. I thought I was on the extreme other side, the left side of the house, not the right.
Mm-hmm.
Because I hadn't read that building or that room yet. I hadn't oriented myself or seen that side of the house yet. So I didn't know where I was. I couldn't landmark on anything.
Okay, we're a little over an hour into the interview, and there's a lot more to be shared with Lionel, so I'm going to pick it up with a second episode next week that you're not going to want to miss, as he talks about some of the lessons learned from this incident and the impact that it had on his family. So be sure to check in with us next week and hear part 2 of this powerful interview. That's it. Episode 35 is complete. Thank you to firefighter Lionel Crowther for taking some time from your busy schedule to talk with me today and share the amazing close call experience that you had. And for the listeners, please come back next week and hear part 2 of this amazing story. Thank you to our listeners for sharing some of your valuable time with me today. I sincerely appreciate your support of the SA Matters mission. If you've experienced or witnessed a near miss and would like to be interviewed on this show, visit samatters.com. Click on the Contact Us link, and I'll reach out to you and we'll get an interview set up. Thank you in advance for sharing your lessons learned so that others may live. If you like the show, please go to iTunes or Stitcher Radio and search for SA Matters Radio and subscribe to the podcast and leave your feedback. If you like the show, I'd really appreciate you giving it a 5-star review as well. Not only will this motivate me to want to work harder for you, but it'll also help others find the show. If you've been inspired and want to learn more about situational awareness, consider becoming part of the SA Matters community. It's free, and when you sign up, you'll receive that special report I talked about earlier called 25 Best Practices for Improving First Responder Safety. To claim your free gift, just head over to samatters.com and click on the red box on the right side of the home page. Be safe out there, and may the peace of the Lord and strong situational awareness be with you always.
You've been listening to the Situational Awareness Matters radio show with Dr. Richard B. Gassaway. If you are interested in learning more about situational awareness, human factors, and decision-making under stress, visit samatters.com. If you are interested in booking Dr. Gasaway for an upcoming event, visit his personal website at richgasaway.com.